Solidarity was once something spontaneous and common in smaller communities. In simpler times, residents of villages or small towns, when they saw their neighbors facing great difficulties, didn't hesitate to extend a helping hand. Whether it was the loss of a harvest, lack of food, worn-out clothes, or even the sadness of emotional pain, mutual support was natural. Together, they often organized collective actions. The whole community took part in building houses, fixing roofs, or looking after the land for future planting. It was a silent network of cooperation, strengthened by daily coexistence and shared needs. These gestures generated security and made life much lighter for everyone involved. In the collective memory, especially in difficult historical periods such as wars, unity became especially evident. Shared suffering created an intimate connection between people, making any crisis they faced more bearable. There is no shortage of touching accounts of these situations where each person relieved the other's pain. In recent decades, however, something has changed profoundly in modern societies. Economic progress, combined with new technologies, has brought a kind of unprecedented autonomy to the individual. In the most prosperous places, the need for daily closeness and cooperation has all but disappeared. Instead, modern life has come to revolve around self-sufficiency. This independence did not come alone. With it came a subtle but very serious problem: isolation. Technological autonomy has diminished the importance of direct relationships between people, replacing affection and community care with automated systems and individual conveniences. We have become able to live without depending on our neighbors, without realizing that we may need them for things other than basic necessities. Even so, is it really so bad to live without constantly depending on each other? Aren't we ignoring the benefits that independence has brought to our lives? After all, today everything we need comes easily, delivered by the efficient hands of technology. It remains to be seen whether this comfort and independence compensate for the lack of what we have lost, the invisible bonds of human solidarity. Today's everyday scenario has become incredibly simple. Any product we want arrives at our doorstep with a single digital touch. Services ranging from cleaning to personal transportation and intimate care are available without the need for human contact. In many European markets, ATMs allow you to pay for your purchases without having to exchange words or glances. Even deeper interpersonal relationships can now have technological substitutes, virtual companions driven by advanced artificial intelligence. This reality sounds radical, but it clearly reveals how interactions between people are becoming increasingly optional. While some observe this scenario with dread, envisioning a cold and distant future, others find in it a strange form of freedom. Isn't this independence, after all, a positive achievement, capable of opening up new horizons? Let's imagine our existence as a wide-open ocean, full of discoveries waiting to be discovered. We are creatures swimming in this infinite space, free to decide for ourselves whether we will explore new territories together or in total solitude. In this aquatic metaphor, companionship is no longer an obligation, but a conscious and deliberate decision. This state of absolute independence has obvious benefits. Each individual can spend their time exactly as they wish, choosing the tranquility of solitary moments without the drama inherent in personal relationships. Albert Einstein is a fascinating example of this preference for emotional autonomy. Although deeply concerned with social and collective issues, the genius physicist recognized a curious emotional distance within himself. He once honestly stated that he had never felt fully connected to his family, his country, or even his close friends. This disconnection, he said, was essential for his creativity and inner peace. Psychoanalyst Carl Jung also reflected on this condition when deciding to get married. In his own words, Jung realized after getting married that he had exchanged a precious freedom. the ability to fully experience solitude. Thus, he realized that there is something valuable in this individual experience, something that perhaps the modern world has rediscovered. We can then rethink whether contemporary solitude really deserves so much criticism, or whether deep down there isn't a positive side hidden in it. A private, silent, and light peace that we can't always find in the constant presence of others. But is silence in itself something to be feared? Or could it be that, in the midst of absence, we discover another form of presence, deeper, truer? The answer perhaps lies in the difference between being alone and being at peace with oneself. Not all absence means abandonment. Not all silence carries suffering. There is a fundamental difference between feeling alone and being alone by choice. Although these states may seem similar at first glance, their roots are completely different. Loneliness generally stems from lack, solitude from freedom. As the philosopher Paul Tillich wrote, language created the word loneliness to express the pain of being alone, and it created the word solitude to express the glory of being alone. This distinction, however subtle, changes the way we view the experience of being with ourselves. We live in an age where external noise is constant and the digital connection is never disconnected. And paradoxically, the more surrounded we are by notifications, voices, and expectations, the more difficult it becomes to listen to our own minds. Many run away from silence because it is confronting. When there's no one around, we're forced to face what's left inside. However, it is precisely in this silent territory that we can find something essential: self-knowledge. Being in solitude is often the only moment when we can breathe without pressure, think without filters, exist without having to prove anything. Solitude is the space where masks fall away, where there is no need to adjust words or control gestures. There are no looks to please or standards to obey. In this state, the mind finds rest and the spirit finds clarity. For many, this kind of experience is uncomfortable because it requires presence, not of others but of oneself. And being present with yourself can be more challenging than it sounds. Nevertheless, when cultivated with awareness, solitude becomes a refuge, a place to restart, a fertile field where new ideas spring up and old burdens dissolve. Learning to be alone without loneliness is a gesture of emotional maturity. It means stopping looking for company out of need and starting to choose it out of real affinity. Those who learn to live with themselves also learn to better select the bonds they form. You no longer have to accept relationships out of fear of emptiness, and that changes everything. Solitude teaches us that being well alone is the first step towards being genuinely well accompanied. Because only those who know how to be alone know the right time to get closer. And when they come closer, it's completely without dependence, without demands, just out of a desire to share what is already full. In his personal reflections, Carl Jung confessed in a diary his discomfort at having lost his natural access to solitude, perceiving it only through artificial memories. For him, love, although beautiful, hid a dark aspect, the loss of that precious inner silence. Such introspection reveals an implicit benefit of modern life, where personal interactions can be optional. If socializing becomes a choice, we can always withdraw quietly to enjoy solitary moments. Of course, not everyone copes equally well with this voluntary solitude. There are individuals who seek constant social contact, unable to remain unaccompanied for long. However, for those who know how to appreciate it, the experience of isolation can be profoundly valuable, whether it's the result of unavoidable circumstances or a conscious personal decision. In the past, when the sense of community was more intense, people became actively involved in each other's lives, often cooperating. However, this closeness brought with it some problems. Living in such close quarters inevitably meant taking part in conflicts, gossip, and daily dramas. Depending intensely on neighbors and friends, we were subject to their personal issues, even those we would have preferred to avoid. In today's context, where this dependence is reduced, we have the privilege of dispensing with uncomfortable relationships. Autonomy allows us to avoid unwanted ties, keeping a comfortable distance from those whose behavior is unpleasant. Marriage, for example, has changed significantly. No longer an obligation, but a personal choice. Religious leaders who once strongly controlled marriage decisions now play a much more discreet role. Men and women can therefore choose to be single. This change has brought mixed results. On the one hand, the growing number of divorces has led to a proliferation of fragmented households. On the other hand, societies like Japan are facing serious population challenges due to the growing decision of many citizens to remain alone and childless. Naturally, freedom of choice also leads to selectivity. People carefully analyze whether it is worth sacrificing independence for relationships that may not work out, avoiding risks such as controlling, abusive, or incompatible partners. In addition, relationships require significant personal investments of time and energy, resources that some prefer to direct towards their own individual interests and goals. However, there is a clear downside. By being extremely selective, we run the risk of being alone even though we want company. When it's easy to live alone, relationships end quickly at the first difficulty. The same happens with friendships. Freed from the absolute need for friends, it's possible to end toxic relationships with peace of mind and cultivate genuine bonds based on truly shared interests. Finally, this independence also touches on personal authenticity. Social groups often demand conformity, shaping our attitudes and thoughts. Not being dependent on these circles gives us the freedom to live authentically, allowing us to be exactly who we want to be. Jean-Paul Sartre once said that hell is the others. Not because they are bad in themselves, but because of the weight they impose on our identity. To be in front of the gaze of others is often to submit to expectations, norms, and judgments. The constant presence of external opinions shapes us in an almost invisible way, distancing us from who we really are. In this struggle for acceptance, we become performers in a play we didn't write. We shape attitudes, words, and decisions just to maintain a pleasing image. Schopenhauer, observing this human behavior, saw in it a dangerous vice: excessive concern with what others think. According to him, such obsession is unnecessary and useless in the face of the true pursuit of happiness. After all, the opinion of others is often irrelevant to genuine well-being. Nietzsche, on the other hand, proposed a total break. For him, it is necessary to break with the herd mentality and go beyond the limits imposed by inherited moral codes. Only then would the human being become full, creator of their own values, master of their own destiny. This elevated figure, the Übermensch, does not need the approval of others in order to exist. His existence is self-defined, self-sufficient, and free. This relational independence allows each person to build a unique path. Not being emotionally dependent on others gives you the chance to live authentically. It even allows us to explore solitude without bitterness, finding in it not a burden, but a shelter. It's not a question of denying the importance of connection, but of choosing consciously when it should happen. To live this way is to recognize that freedom does not lie in isolating oneself, but in knowing that it is possible to retreat when necessary, without guilt. This internal space, protected from outside noise, offers clarity, calm, and the opportunity for personal growth. At a time when technology guarantees unprecedented autonomy, this freedom to decide when to connect and when to withdraw becomes essential. Solitude takes on a new meaning, no longer abandonment but possibility, a chance to look inwards and find meaning. In the end, true fulfillment may lie in this subtle balance between being with and being alone. It is in this back and forth between bonds and distancing that the richness of human experience is hidden. A silent dance between two poles, the freedom to be and the pleasure of connecting.